The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. Adoption of previous council meeting minutes. Are there any errors or omissions to note in our regular council meeting minutes of January 6, 2025? Seeing none, the regular council meeting minutes of January 6, 2025 are adopted as presented for the corporate record. Adoption of the council agenda. Any additions or objections? Seeing none, we will adopt the agenda as presented. Any councillor announcements? Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, and through the chair. Good evening. As the chair of Public Service Committee, I'm truly excited to announce that next month, the City of Medicine Hat will be having its 60th year of Jam Pail Bonspiel. I can't believe that, but 60 years of this event is an attest to the dedication and commitment of everyone involved. The Jam Pail Bonspiel was originally created to provide students in elementary school an activity that would be held during Teachers' Convention in the month of February, which focuses on participation, sport, and fun. In the early days of the Jam Pail Bonspiel, the tin pails were used obviously for storing jam, and then they would fill it with water and freeze it, hence the name of the Jam Pail Bonspiel. This year's Bonspiel will be held February 19th and the 20th from grades 3 to 6. But this year they have added an open to all ages category. This will take place on the Wednesday, February 18th. This provides an opportunity for anyone in the Jam Pail enthusiasts to participate. I actually attend and take part in classes up at the Big Marble Go Center. And I ran into a lovely lady that does the recreation program coordinating, Rebecca Hirsch. And we were talking about it and how wonderful she feels, how it brings people together and celebrate a tradition through many generations. And I couldn't agree more. Just so everyone is aware, registration will be closing on February 10th. And to register, it's all online on the City of Medicine Hat website. The Bonspiel will be taking place at the Kimplex Arena, where they will convert the ice slabs into 13 curling sheets. I would like to thank all the individuals who have been involved throughout many years in making the Jam Pail Bonspiel a huge success. I'm sure there are many of us who have fond memories of their first time taking part in this very fun and community-minded event. So good luck to everyone involved.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I totally forgot that I did have a councillor announcement. I apologize. I just want to share something that happened in the community last week. I think many people know that there was a Betty White Challenge. I don't know if you know what that is. It's for raising funds for animals. So there was a business in town that did this, and I'm just going to read the social media post and I'll share to you who it is after. Thanks to the amazing support, participation, and kindness of each of you, I'm proud to share that they raised over $2,000 in one day. So they basically gave away the classes for the day and there's their fitness place. But the generosity didn't stop there. Two incredible, and this is Collective, members of Collective who are too humble to be named and will not be named, matched the donation, bringing the one-day total donated to APARC from Collective $4,042. Truly, I don't have words to say, this is her saying, but neither do I, about our community support, and especially towards animals. It's overwhelming, but she doesn't have the words to fully express how proud and deeply moved she is by this community. This is not just about the money raised, but about the love, kindness, and willingness to make a difference, a real difference. It's about coming together to support something bigger than ourselves, and that's what the Collective is all about. So there's a meaning to her name. So if you have space in your home and your heart, please take a moment to consider the adoptable kitties at A Park. I couldn't resist capturing, so of course Sabrina put a few heart-wrenching pictures. But anyways, my point was, big shout out to that business for donating all their classes that day, and they do it every year, and to the 2 members that match the donations to a total of $4,042. So well done on our community.
Thank you, Councillor Sharps. Any other announcements? I will note, Councillor Hyder, your mic is still on. Seeing none, we will move on to delegations. And we have one delegation. It's an internal group that is going to be providing a presentation on Southeast Alberta Economic Opportunity Strategy, Implementation Framework and Action Plan. And the presentation will be provided by Selena McLean-Moore, Director of Economic Development. Do you have others with you today?
Blay, who is the Managing Director of the Economic Advisory Team with Deloitte. And Paul is going to present on the final recommendations for our Southeast Alberta Economic Opportunity Strategy. Take it, Paul.
Anyone else?
I'm going to let Paul introduce his team.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. I will share a window. Is the PowerPoint visible to the audience?
Yep, we can see it.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Thank you, Selena, for the introduction. Thank you, Mayor Clark, members of council, members of administration, for this opportunity to present to you, share our work that's been done over the past 10 months in partnership with the Southeast Alberta Economic Opportunity Steering Committee, which includes each of the 6 municipalities in the region. My name is Paul Blay. I'm a managing director with Economic Advisory. I co-lead a practice that is responsible for local and regional economic development with municipalities and communities across the country. Our project team includes Jamie Van Struth, Senior Manager, Rebecca Taylor and Darcy Acton, Senior Associates. Together, the 4 of us worked hand in hand with the steering committee. Rebecca was originally slated to join me in the presentation. It was scheduled originally for December 16th, but now being postponed to January 20th. Rebecca has just started 2 weeks of very well-deserved vacation, so I said that I would take full reins tonight. The 6 municipalities that participated each had a representative on the steering committee. You can see here that Selena was the City of Medicine Hat's representative as a voting member of the steering committee. Alex Wright provided administrative support on behalf of the rest of the steering committee. They were very involved through every step of the way, helping make decisions as our consulting team presented options to them, and must say it was an excellent experience with a very open, candid, and progressive dialogue throughout the entire project. We were engaged to help build the region's prosperity and identify ways of diversifying the economy. There are already very many exciting and effective economic development initiatives that are going on in Southeast Alberta. This project aimed to find initiatives that would have a high impact and might not be possible except through an augmented, coordinated effort. Development of the strategy, the implementation framework, the action plan, as I mentioned before, was very highly collaborative. It included a background review and economic base analysis, strategic advisory panel session looking at economic forecasts and local impacts of market trends with some of the subject matter experts that Deloitte has working in the grander economy. Mapping Economic Development Service Delivery in Southeast Alberta, a series of Deloitte discussion papers, and then we had plenty of engagement. I'll walk through each of the steps in a little bit more detail. What we heard is, what the data told us, and also what the participants in the process told us. In terms of the economic base analysis, it was very comprehensive. You can see the 9 different subsections that were completed and presented to the team, and they're presented in documents that you have seen or have access to. Overall, we found that the region has a bit of an older population compared to the province. There's been little population growth with modest net migration in recent years. And while housing costs are lower than in comparable regions, this slower population growth means that there's been less new housing development over the last decade. We also found that employment has declined from its high in 2019, and our forecasts are showing that without interventions, the employment will not rebound to pre-pandemic levels until 2031, 7 years from now. The base analysis suggests that employment increases will be focused on healthcare and hospitality industries, and anticipating declines in employment in agriculture and construction related sectors. Now, in terms of what we heard through the engagement, we had a number of opportunities for participation. We had 6 community workshops. That's 1 workshop with each of the municipalities. Many of you, of members of council, participated in the Medicine Hat session. There was a workshop with service delivery partners, but we also did surveys and we did interviews with this group. There's an incredibly strong network of economic development organizations in Southeast Alberta that are already in place. Includes organizations like Verge, Community Futures, Apex, Palliser, Tourism Medicine Hat. They're all working in partnership with the municipal economic development departments. There's education providers, there's chambers of commerce, there's workforce development partners. It's very, it's a web of service providers. And through the workshop, the one-on-one interviews, the survey, we were able to better understand where gaps existed in service delivery, which is very important to identifying how a regional effort can be supportive and not duplicative. We also had a couple of summits. Summit 1 was 54 participants, and it focused on the what, identifying the top priorities for regional economic development. And Summit number 2 had 35 participants, which was focused on how, identifying the best mechanisms to complete the implementation plan and achieve the priorities. In terms of those regional opportunities, we narrowed it down to what came out of the conversations were 6 opportunities. Advocacy to work together as a collective of municipalities to lobby for infrastructure improvements and pursue government investment and funding opportunities that would effectively support economic growth in the entire Southeast Alberta region. There was investment attraction, which is about offering like a cohesive inbound site selection service that will help attract new industries to the community. Investment attraction is really important to economic development, but it's not the only way of increasing the economic wealth. Entrepreneurship and innovation, working within high value sectors to help companies that are in those sectors grow and prosper, and also help to identify research and innovation opportunities and centers to support that kind of growth. Tourism and development and marketing came out of the conversations, and essentially, the essence of that was to collaborate to develop more regional tourism experiences and promotion. Business retention and expansion, something that your city's economic development team has been doing fantastically over the last year to 2 years, is about supporting the existing business community, ensuring that there are supports available when existing businesses are looking to expand, and ensuring that the companies that you have in Medicine Hat want to grow and expand in Medicine Hat and not somewhere else in Alberta, Canada, or around the world. And finally, workforce development was an opportunity that was identified. And here we're looking at identifying industry needs for future workforce, and aligning training and education opportunities with those needs so that the workforce of tomorrow is going to be highly supportive of the entrepreneurial and entrepreneurs' needs. In terms of strategic priorities, the first summit had 54 participants, as I mentioned. The goal was to identify the most feasible and significant priorities for regional economic development. Out of these came 5 strategic priorities broken down into 2 types. The one is, the one type is foundational priorities. That includes talent attraction and development, as described in the workforce opportunity just moments ago, and alignment and advocacy. So working together as a municipal collaborative to put Southeast Alberta on the map when it comes to advocacy for a new investment, infrastructure renewal and investment. And then we have sector priorities. These 3 sectors identified through the data and through conversations as having tremendous future opportunity. There's change and in each of these 3 that require continual innovation with them to ensure that Southeast Alberta is getting its fair share, or maybe more than its fair share, of growth in these sectors. More specifically, the foundational priorities are essential to economic growth and diversification of the region. They have the potential to positively influence growth in all of those 3 sectors that were identified, but also the economy just in general. If regional collaboration is done in these 2 priority areas, we believe that it'll leverage and support ongoing efforts of the existing economic development service providers, such as your municipal department, but all of the other organizations. And the initiatives that have been identified in the implementation plan don't easily fit within the mandate or resources of the existing service providers, but are really well suited to a regional approach. There's a shortage of trained and qualified labor in skilled trades and agriculture in Southeast Alberta. That was a widespread concern through all of the conversations, and it's making it difficult to retain and grow businesses. There's a brain drain described that have been limited local opportunities for growth after graduation. Historic collaborative efforts have had sort of mixed results. And some stakeholders expressed frustration with repeated restarting of regional economic development, but also these same organizations have renewed interest, and there's eagerness to work together to tap into the region's potential. Just a little bit more detail on the sector priorities. I described them as 3 sectors that we identified through data and through conversations of having incredible potential. This is probably not new news to you, but the aerospace and defense sector, you have Canada's largest restricted commercial airspace dedicated to beyond visual line of sight drone test flights. There's a research lab operated by Canada's Agency for Defense Research and Development at CFB Suffield. and significant airside and groundside business development potential at Medicine Hat Airport. Your region is really a prime location for growth in this sector. Transformation of agriculture and agri-food is driven by increasing global demand for plant-based proteins, advancements in agri-food technologies, challenging weather patterns. The action plan that we've developed and that's been agreed upon by the steering committee focuses on opportunities arising from these global forces, like export development, agribusiness investment, and agriculture technology, and has potential for, given the ruralness of a lot of the Southeast Alberta region, a potential to have a positive economic impact across all communities. And significantly as well for all communities, you're rich in natural beauty, you have a strong cultural heritage, there's unique experiences already, but with investment in infrastructure and development of some new experiences, we believe that the region can increase visitor spend and stay duration. Just going to just cover this broadly. This is the action plan, the main elements of the action plan. There are 17 initiatives that align to the 5 priority areas. These are ambitious and would not likely be achievable without regional collaboration. And this is the whole intention of the effort, I suppose, is to give purpose to regional collaboration. The development of this strategy was informed by input from the engagement from dozens of service providers, all the business leaders, elected officials, educators, and industry stakeholders. We believe that this action plan really does bring forward the important activities that were identified by those people, but also from our industry expertise in economic development. In terms of the implementation framework, summit number 2, as I mentioned early on, was about identifying how these strategic opportunities, how the action plan can be implemented. And so we have broken out the framework, the how, into 4 categories, 4 categories of conversation, I guess you could say. In terms of the implementation framework itself, the partner municipalities need to decide how they will work together, make decisions, and make progress. We've aimed to make a clear framework that establishes a shared understanding of objectives, goals, while mitigating resources. I think it's important to note that we've not made a recommendation to create a new organization. We believe that there is capacity to implement this through the ongoing participation of the 6-member steering committee. Of course, it'll evolve as initiatives move forward. But the group that guided the development of the strategy and action plan would be a logical core group to oversee the implementation over the next 5 years. In terms of the organization, many of the initiatives we believe can be carried out by working groups that are made up of economic development service providers, leaders in industry and education, community champions as well. Some of it will require significant staff time and administrative leadership. So in these cases, we're identifying a host organization. We're recommending that a host organization be identified. Onto the financial side of things, there are many sources of revenue potential. We believe that there needs to, the requirement exists to have a core set of funding provided by the municipalities that could be leveraged with senior levels of government funding from senior levels of government, but also participation of other service providers depending on the type of initiative that's being pursued. If all the actions in the plan were implemented, you can see that the investment in the region's economy over the 5 years would be a little bit more than $900,000. If we're basing the financials that are on the next number of slides on a municipal contribution of $60,000, all 6 municipalities collectively contributing $60,000, not $60,000 for each municipality. And you can see here the power of leveraging the investment in this, this very straightforward scenario. The $60,000 that is raised by the municipalities is used to make application to an Alberta level, provincial level funding program that matches. And then those funds are used to apply to federal level funding, which matches the two together. So a contribution of $60,000 by the municipality can become a $240,000 pool of money. So leveraging the dollars 4 to 1 in this most simplest of cases. How to collect that $60,000 or grow to that $60,000? A number of different options were presented to the steering committee. The first was, well, let's just split the dollars evenly and everyone contributes $10,000. You can see this would become quite challenging for municipalities that have less budget and there have varying levels of resource strength, but also the opportunity to benefit from the implementation, the benefits of the priorities being completed. A second option was to base the funding on an assessment model. This assumed a base contribution of $2,000 plus an amount based on each municipality's non-residential assessment. You can see it results in an inequitable distribution, of course. And the theory behind this is that it assumes the municipalities with the greater assessment or greater industrial commercial base will benefit more from the outcomes of this, because the intention is to grow, expand the number of businesses, the employment base within the region. A third and final option, or third base option, was to go population. So this works similar to the assessment model, a base contribution of 2,000 plus an amount based on the municipality's contribution, or sorry, population. You can see that this one really drastically pushes Medicine Hat into contributing by far the most significant amount of funds to the initiative, over 75, to over 3/4 of the contribution would come from Medicine Hat in this model. So where we landed with the steering committee was to complete, or to do a weighted calculation based on non-residential assessment and population base. So with this base amount of $2,000, no matter the size of the municipality, plus a contribution based on non-residential assessment and population, you can see that it's still slightly inequitable in a sense that some municipalities like yourselves and Cypress are contributing more. But the steering committee felt largely that this was the most equitable way to move forward, and is the recommendation of the steering committee to move forward with this model. And even in this case, if we think of yourselves as contributing, let's say $20,000 for ease of math, if it results in a $240,000 per year economic development initiative, each year you're more than you're leveraging more than 10 times your contribution in terms of the overall potential net impact of this. Okay, closing slides on performance management. Just want to say that each of the initiatives in the action plan is tied to a performance measurement so that people overseeing the initiative can understand where success has been had, where perhaps things haven't gone as well as hoped, and be able to make adjustments. It really does foster a spirit of transparency and allows for really effective communication between partners. And it provides a basis for reporting back to municipal councils and sharing updates to the broader community. And finally, in terms of next steps, the recommendations are to finalize decisions on governance, confirm financial commitments, identify partners and collaborators, and activate the working groups. Essentially, this strategy aims to propel the region into a leading economic center in Alberta. It'll provide an opportunity to continue to build trust, to continue to discover innovative solutions together and foster a collaborative approach to economic development. And with that, Mayor Clark, I appreciate your time and I'm open to responding to any of council's questions.
Thank you. Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you very much for the presentation and for the wonderful report that trying to get that all into one quick presentation would have been a challenge. So I do appreciate it, that there's a lot more behind the scenes here. I just had a question on page, I think it's 22 maybe of the slides, value to Southeast Alberta. This is where you reference 906,000 if all actions in this plan were implemented. Hold on, wait, sorry, that's not exactly where I wanted to ask. Well, it was sort of in that category. I was just wondering when you were talking about the costs of all of the investment in the plan of $906,000, does that include the costs incurred by the administrative lead? Assuming that's not been determined yet, but I'm just wondering if that's worked into that number.
Through Mayor Clark to Councillor Robbins, thanks for the compliment and for the question. The 906,000 is an all-in investment required to ensure that the initiative moves forward. So that would include administrative costs, which would be shared through the costs of the municipal contributions plus the contributions earned from senior levels of government, and not forgetting that there may be other funding sources that may come about as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Dumanowski.
Through the chair, thank you to the presenter, Paul, and Director McLean-Moore. Interesting report, good conversation. To some extent, kind of a reimagination or diversion from historic areas that we've seen around this table before. But I suppose they're not likely to change or pivot that quickly. And so my point was around some of the areas that you suggest are the sector priorities. When I initially looked at it and kind of contrasted that against the slide that indicated the industry is projected to see the largest employment, there was a disalignment. I mean, I understand you're singling out based on some of the variables in the south sector where we're likely to see it, and with the demographics piece that you introduced in here, I appreciate that, and it makes sense. My initial thought was much of that is outside of our immediate control. I mean, I don't want to say the building of another hospital is not something we control. It's provincially led, but some of the care components around that, certainly with an aging population in general, will inevitably come to fruition and thereby creating necessity for employment. My question was around the sector priorities that you've identified, and they're sound. they make sense. The aerospace one is not new, but given, and I'm asking this because I don't know the answer, but given recent announcements of significant investment by the federal government in CFB area, do you see any new realignment or pivoting toward that sector because of the inherent value that that will bring and in a real way? And so sometimes we're dreaming about, I don't mean that sarcastically, but we're imagining or we're dreaming of new areas of growth in certain sectors, or we're hopeful of it, but they're only hopeful until we see something come to fruition. But in this case, we certainly have an identified investment that's coming. There's a lot of excitement, lots of buzz in the community since that announcement. So I guess in light of the aerospace component being one of them, that's not certainly precluding any other kind of investment for coming and aligning with that new expansion or development at CFB Suffield. But do you see any new need for pivoting around that or putting more resources and more attention around that in light of the fact that that is a real, tangible, meaningful investment that's coming our way? That's my first question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Clark, to Councillor Domanowski, thanks for the question. Before addressing the one around the aerospace sector, just would like to say your comment around the hospital. Healthcare hasn't been identified as a specific sector, but hospital or healthcare improvements are excellent opportunities for regional participation to work on collective or collaborative advocacy, because that's something that could positively benefit all municipalities. So just to throw that out there. When it comes to the aerospace sector, or actually when it came to identifying all of the sectors, one thing that's not shown in the graphs, but it's something that we collectively think about, is what you said about the ability to influence the economic sector is a really important driver towards which ones get put into the top of the prioritization heap, because there are a dozen different sectors that we could say, yes, these could add value in the future to the regional economy. But when it came to aerospace, it seemed to us that this is really one that you can have an influence on, that you can, by taking action as outlined in the implementation plan, you can influence change. And it's a very competitive sector. There are other regions in Canada that are competing very heavily for growth in aerospace. Montreal, the Calgary region had a very large investment announcement in Wheatland County not too long ago. So it's competitive. And we were very concerned that if Southeast Alberta, if the region didn't get its collective act together on this sector, that you would be left behind in the dust, because those other regions are aggressively promoting themselves to the influencers in that industry, that they are a great location for investment. So by being collaborative there, we feel like you have all the assets you need to get out into the industry space and ensure that those investors know that you have this.
If I could just add, Your Worship. So, no, I appreciate that. And again, what do I know? But I mean, when I think about that kind of an announcement and investment in a real way, it's bound to catch or capture the interest and imagination of other like competitive spaces. As you said, we're competing. It's endless competition, but that kind of a real investment ought to create a second look, if not a first look, where we otherwise might have been overlooked. So I'm excited by that. The other piece you had kind of touched on, and certainly is a real thing in every environment or municipality, is you talked about the labor management or the skilled labor force component, matching it against some of these sectors. So it's the same old question. Do we have any opportunity, or what opportunities we have to work with our post-secondary institution, Medicine College, who has partnerships with other universities, so quite a depth and breadth of opportunity there to be proactive and/or work in hand when there are opportunities knocking, I'm wishful or hopeful, at our door, that we can immediately, we have the immediate attention of them to try and match some skill, education, workforce with them as a partner in this whole plan, because we all know that it takes more than just municipality or municipalities and others to move these needles forward. We need the attention of other institutions like the college to help us get there. I'm certain there are relationships already forged there, but do we have any concrete agendas or directions around matching that skill development if and when opportunities present themselves?
Through Mayor Clark to Councillor Dominowski, thanks for the follow-up question. Medicine College was a very positive participant in the service delivery workshop, as well as some of the other engagements. It was a pleasure to have them as part of the conversation. There are other organizations that are very concerned about workforce, the future of workforce development in the region as well. So it rose to the top very quickly as a significant opportunity plus challenge. I think the key thing for me, Councillor Dominowski, in this whole type of initiative is to ensure that industry's voice is consistently heard. I mean, after all, they are the ones that are going to be doing the hiring. They are the ones who know what their workforce needs are going to be like in 5 and 10 and 15 years. So any initiative, and there are some initiatives already ongoing, really the actions that we've identified are to piggyback on the positive ones and ensure that nothing is being missed, but also to have industry leaders participating actively in the creation of any plan that goes forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. Through the chair. So I do have a few questions. I went over this study at length the first time, the second time, and the third time. So I read it, and my very first one is on the action plan timeline and budget, and very similar to Councillor Dominowski's questions. I do have some big questions around some of the money. So when we're looking at developing and implementing agriculture and agri-food sector, and we're looking at 100,000, and then it's the same for the high priority sectors, and again for advanced aviation. Are we the ones doing that, or are we asking the already existing businesses to take the lead on this and we're helping? And if we're helping, I don't know, I want to make sure, where's this funding, what is this funding allocated to do? Is it bricks and mortar, or is it talent? That's my first question.
Through Mayor Clark to Councillor Sharps, thank you. All of the initiatives that are identified are supported wholly through the contributions that would be generated from the base municipal funding, leveraged with senior levels of government support, and perhaps some other support that's not identified yet, but someone may find it, some other service organization may find it attractive to contributing to. The way that we're recommending that it gets done is through the active involvement of the existing steering committee, which can be, which would maintain the governance over the completion of the activities. Most of these aren't brick and mortar, for instance, but they are either setting yourself up, like for instance, with a strategy to understanding more fully what your competitive advantages are, what the region's value proposition is, so that when you're ready, when you have that and you know that, you're ready to go to market and attract investors. In some cases, you're a little closer to being investment ready. So more quickly you can move into marketing, partnership development, things that will improve the chance for investors or visitors to come to the region. There are initiatives that that will be large enough that would require a lead municipal point person. But the idea is for the dollar support to pay for any kind of administration that could be required to move the initiatives forward in support of a third party completing the work, or in support of other service providers helping to lift the weight.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question,
It
Councillor
did,
Sharps?
yeah, thank you. It did, but I guess
Okay.
it still leaves me with another question. So when I look at page 52 of the slide package, for example, 2025, there's an amount of 240,000, 2026, 285, 2027, 232, and then it goes into 72,000. So are we saying this is what we think it's going to take, but no, we're not actually going to have to come up with the money because we only have to do a one-time 60,000? Because and that's where I question even more. So if
Okay.
I look at line 2.1, for example, from 2027 to 2029, where it looks like there's an amount of $50,000 toward each year towards delivery and enhancement of navigation of programs and services for businesses and job seekers. Well, that sounds like you're buying out my company, which I'm pretty sure you're not. So if we're not, right, I own a staffing agency. If we're not buying out local staffing agencies, are we making sure that the existing companies that are here are able to work, or is the city going into business against business? It's just something I want some clarity on here.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Sharps. Maybe first of all, I should say that $60,000 is a commitment for 5 years. So if the full 5 years is to be completed in the implementation plan, that 60,000 is required each and every year of the 5 years. That 60 is continually leveraged to achieve the full $906,000 in investment required. The city nor any of the other municipalities are not going into business to compete against business. The activities of the steering committee are really to support ongoing innovation to help to support entrepreneurs in identifying where needed, ways that they can innovate, ways that they can capitalize on future opportunities that are coming through economic change, economic challenge, economic opportunity. There's no place for the public sector in this initiative to be doing the business of business.
Perfect. I'm taping all of this, just so you know. I'm kidding. I just want to make sure that we're not going into business against business. I had one more question, actually two. So is this the first council that this agreement is in front of in terms of a financial split? So everybody else has agreed? We're the last? Okay, excellent. And then on the performance metric baseline that I read, thank you for putting that in there, but I'm really unclear as to what the performance metrics are. So at what point do we say that we're successful in the money here or not? So is it an industry that comes in and has a local spend of $2.5 million in procurement, or just brings in 5 people? Like what are we going to measure our success on?
Through the chair to Councillor Sharps, in many cases, baselines have already been established through the strategy. So when you're looking at an example like data inquiries or growth in prime working age population, we know where it is in 2024 or 2025, I guess we're in now, but we know where it stands. So our recommendation for a group like this would be to report back very frequently early on, every 6 months, perhaps back to city council, certainly at least on an annual basis, so that municipal councils can understand how their investment was used. I think I'd like to use this opportunity though to stress to municipal council that many of these will take some time to see results, that economic development is often a longer term investment, and you often don't see a a noticeable change within 3 months or within 6 months. So have some patience, invest in it for multiple years would be my recommendation, so that it gives the steering committee and the other participants an opportunity to be successful. And it also gives confidence that there's a stability going forward, so that applications to funding to other levels of government or other organizations that may fund are seen as, okay, this is real, this is tangible. I'll stack my investment on top of this because there's belief amongst the municipalities, and there's a real positive initiative going forward.
I had one last, thank you so much. Paul, I just had one last question, and it might be you, it might be the director to answer. In terms of all the other economic developments, so we belong to Verge, I think, we belong to PEP, we belong to various other ones, and we all definitely try to work together. How does this align with that?
Do you want me to take that, Paul? I think I should.
Sure, Selena.
Okay. Good question. So I will, through the chair, I will clarify that we don't belong to Verge.
Right, sorry.
We belong to Palliser Economic Partnership, which is a larger region. I would say that how we align with these is that this is municipally led. And so we are able to take the 6 municipalities and combine our resources in order to fulfill what's in the strategy. A lot of the other organizations are supporting, they're smaller, right? So supporting smaller amounts of communities, and their mandates might not be quite as broad as this one is. This one, you'll see a lot of very high-level strategy work, investment attraction work that is much easier to find success when you're working with multiple municipalities in a group such as 6 municipalities rather than a smaller group.
Good, I think that I'll probably come back later with some sort of a business arising motion, but because this is probably the only area where we don't have a committee reporting back into council, so it'd be good to get this kind of feedback. I think annual is a stretch for me. I think that economic development is such a long-term game, but we need to, as elected officials, understand what's happening every 6 months, but maybe not see the results every 6 months. And I know city manager is just dying to say something.
City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, through the chair. Our intent going forward, because we did hear this recently with council at our strategic planning session, because economic development reports directly up to the city manager's office, there was a feeling that it doesn't have a standing committee, and what we were going to do quarterly is have them report through D&I, and that's going to be starting early in 2025. So thank you.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I had a question from the report, not the slideshow, and it's page 25 of the agenda packet, which is page 13 of the report. And it's under strategy implementation. You say, or whoever wrote the report says, past strategies have been created but not fully implemented, leading to frustration and disengagement among stakeholders. An action plan with clear objectives and measurable outcomes can support implementation. And we hear this frequently, I think, from the public and other parties that, municipalities typically will do a lot of studies and strategies and then lack implementation. I know a lot of that implementation comes around the council table with political will and funds to make these things happen. But when you're working in a group where there's 6 municipalities represented and elections occur during the long timeframes needed to implement these kinds of strategies, do you have any kind of an agreement or plan to hold the participants to their commitment for this action plan? Or how is the group, or have you considered how you deal with that? We have a municipal election coming up in the fall. There could be considerable changes in councils with different ideas of direction. Is there a way for you to maintain the commitment from all of the parties involved in this?
Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke, I'm not sure if Celine, you want to have a say, but I'll say that memorandum of understanding would be recommended feature of future collaboration.
Yeah, through the chair, we are planning on, so we've got the strategy complete, and now the next piece is going to be the governance piece and really solidifying how exactly we're going to roll this out, getting it on paper, and at that point in time, we will consider taking that to the different municipalities to get their commitment for a multi-year strategy.
All right, I don't see any further questions. I will note, picking up on something that Councillor Sharp said, this item is for information only. So we are not approving anything. Will we be asked to approve something in the future? Or in your view, this, or in administration's view, this is an administrative responsibility and we don't have to approve it?
So through the chair, we have allocated funds from the business cases that were approved for Economic Development Department for 25 and 26. I have the funds to continue with this for 2025 and 2026.
Thank you. I don't see any further questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you to the members of Deloitte as well. Next, we have a public hearing. So I am going to call the public hearing for bylaw 4841 to order. We do have the applicant online, so we're going to go ahead and hear from administration. Then we will hear from the applicant, who has 10 minutes to speak. Then council can ask questions of administration and the applicant. And then we will open it up in the event, or we'll get the notice from the city clerk, and then we can open it up if anyone in the gallery wants to speak for or against the bylaw. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Sandra Moses, a planner with Planning and Development Services, and I will be presenting bylaw number 4841, a land use bylaw amendment to rezone 2, 6, 10, 14, and 18 Sierra Green Southwest to medium density residential district. I would like to note that Planning and Development has not received a development permit application at this time, and this presentation will only go over the rezoning application that we have received. The applicant has a presentation prepared and is available online. If there are questions pertaining to the development plan, they may be able to answer based on the details they're willing to share publicly at this time. To start, this is a brief presentation overview. We will go over the site context, the amendment application details, the land use policy, some site photos, and lastly, the recommendation to council. Looking at a bit of site context, the site is located within the Samus Heights neighborhood and falls within the Samus Heights area structure plan. The map you see highlights its location. The immediate surrounding area consists predominantly of residential uses, with mostly low-density residential district lots and some medium-density residential district lots. There are also lots zoned Community Services District, accommodating a church and a school further north of the site. The nearest transit stop is on Strachan Road, which is a 9-minute walk from the subject site. The site is located in a suburban neighborhood. This area of the city has been serviced since 2015, is currently not entirely built out, and is still developing. The area to the north of the site has mostly developed, and the area to the south of the site remains largely undeveloped. These lots have lane access at the rear, and no motor vehicular access is permitted from Sierra Green Southwest, which allows for street parking along Sierra Green Southwest. The lots are relatively narrower in this area, and similar to the medium density site to the north of the subject site, developers have expressed interest in consolidating lots to create built forms such as semi-detached with secondary suites. The land use bylaw amendment application received is for rezoning the subject sites from low-density residential district to medium-density residential district. The developer's intent of this rezoning is to accommodate a future medium-density residential use. The low-density residential district does not currently allow for more than 2 units, whereas the medium-density residential district allows for more than 2 dwellings. The rezoning application was circulated to the Technical Coordinating Committee, which was an opportunity for all city departments to review and provide comments. No technical concerns pertaining to the rezoning were identified at this stage. Next, I'll go through some planning policies, starting with the Municipal Development Plan. Section 3.2, Livable Neighborhoods Priority 1 states, neighborhoods should be cohesive with an appropriate structure of land uses and densities. Section 4, Where We Grow, describes the advantages of intensification. Section 4, Where We Grow, Missing Middle, describes a range of housing types between single detached houses and apartment buildings that have gone missing from many North American cities. Missing middle housing supports sensitive increases in density, affordable housing options, and an added benefit of an increased tax base. Medicine Hat is currently facing a housing crisis and an affordability crisis. Today, the vacancy rate is about 2%. For context, about 3% is good availability in Alberta. Housing supply and affordability is the biggest issue facing Medicine Hat today. The housing affordability ratio in Medicine Hat is 5.25, and many households will find it challenging to purchase a home without significant financial strain, as a substantial portion of income would need to be allocated towards housing costs. The medium-density residential district provides more opportunity for increased density and a variety of built forms, including missing middle housing. Section 4.5, Where We Grow, Efficient Use of Infrastructure, Suburban Residential Growth Map, is designed to implement the growth objectives. Here, SAMIS Phase 7 is Stage 1, which is existing inventory. Developing these sites first ensures the most efficient use of financial resources and utilization of city infrastructure to its maximum capacity. There are numerous trails throughout the SAMIS neighborhood for biking, walking, or other methods of active transportation. Additionally, SAMIS Heights has a large number of amenities for the public to use, easily accessible by trails. The location for increased density is suitable with ease of access to road, alternative modes of transportation, and lots of amenity space, and is an efficient use of infrastructure. The proposal to rezone the sites from low-density residential district to medium-density residential district is supported by policies within the Municipal Development Plan. The proposed site is located within the SAMIS Heights Area Structure Plan in an area predominantly for low-density residential. Section 3.4.1, Low-Density Single-Family Residential, states, the residential land use in the SAMIS Heights area will be predominantly single-family dwellings. However, it is intended that a variety of other housing types will also be provided. In this area structure plan, the low-density classification includes 1, 2, 3, and 4 unit dwellings. The proposal to rezone the subject land to increase density aligns with the ASP as policy supports up to 4 dwellings per lot under this concept, and the current land use bylaw low-density residential district is restricted to a maximum of 2 dwellings. Moving on to the land use bylaw. The purpose statement of the medium-density residential district states, to allow for the development and moderate intensification of residential neighborhoods with low to mid-rise built forms at medium densities such as multiple unit residential developments, attached housing, and apartments. The current zoning of the site is low-density residential, which allows a maximum of 2 dwellings on site. Examples of 2-unit built forms include 2-unit attached housing, a duplex, or a single-family house with either a secondary suite or a backyard suite. A land use bylaw amendment to medium-density residential is required to accommodate future development of anything greater than 2 dwelling units. On screen is a list of permitted and discretionary uses on site. Under the district, there are site width, site area, area per dwelling, setback, and density requirement, which limit what can be developed on site. We will now go over some examples of the built forms the amendment can accommodate. Under the current lot configuration, the lot widths range from 10.4 meters to 16.4 meters, which limit the built form to attached housing, and a maximum of 2 to 4 units can be accommodated on each lot. The number of units without a zoning change would be 5 single detached houses with secondary suites, so that's a total of 10 units. The maximum building height allowable is 3 stories to a maximum of 12 meters in both cases. Upon changing the lot configuration through a subdivision application, attached housing with a maximum of 11 to 23 units can be accommodated on site. Under the current zoning, the lots could accommodate a total of 8 units of attached housing or 7 single detached houses with 7 secondary suites, so a total of 14 units. The maximum building height allowable in both cases is 3 stories to a maximum of 12 meters. Consolidation of all lots to one lot allows for multiple unit residential development with a maximum of 12 to 17 units. The maximum building height allowable is 3 stories to a maximum of 12 meters for multiple unit residential development, which is a permitted use. An apartment is a discretionary use that can be accommodated on a consolidated site and up to a maximum of 35 units. The maximum building height allowable is 5 stories to a maximum of 20 meters for apartments. An apartment developed to this intensity would not be in alignment with the ASP. Under the current zoning, upon consolidation, the site can accommodate 2 units of attached housing or 1 single detached house with a secondary suite. The maximum building height allowable is 3 stories to a maximum of 12 meters. I would like to note that we have not received a development permit application, and these are only possibilities considering the regulations in the land use bylaw. A detailed review will be done when a development proposal is received. These are some drone photographs taken of the subject site on November 15, 2024. In this image, we can see the immediate context of the site, which is partially developed. This image shows the larger context of the site with the church and the school on the right and proximity of the site to amenities for the public to use, as well as the trails. Overall, the location for increased density is suitable with ease of access to road, alternative modes of transportation, and amenity space. It is recommended through the Municipal Planning Commission that City Council approve bylaw number 4841. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now hear from the applicant. Hello?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Hi. Hope everyone is doing great back in Medicine Hat. I'm really sorry I could not present in person. I'm out of country. I would like to start by thanking Sandra for helping me with this, giving a little bit of background. I also want to thank Honorable Mayor and all of the Honorable our City Council members and our respected citizens for their time.
Can I get you to just state your first and last name for the record? I apologize for interrupting you.
No problem. Yes, you're absolutely correct. My name is Nehal Patel, and I will be representing my family, Patel family.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. So what I will be starting with, friends, is I'm going to try and share the very basic presentation that I have created. Just bear with me for a second here. And are you guys able to see this? Or?
Not yet. Does someone at the
Okay,
city have a copy of your presentation? Because we should be able to launch it. Oh, there, we can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the purpose of today was to basically introduce my family and let you know why we are wanting to develop this area. My family has been residing in Medicine Hat since 2013. That is when we bought our very first business. This is where we have, my father has retired. This is the community where my daughter and my son were born. And this is where I intend to retire as well. Today's agenda also will include a little bit of vision that we have for this particular site and why we want to do rezoning. And we also want to seek the city council members' support in having this approved. So if you allow me, I would like to just give a little bit of background. As I said, in 2013, we acquired our very first business. At this current time in 2025, we have 19 restaurants, 8 commercial properties, 7 residential properties across 3 provinces, 8 restaurants in development. And we have also partnered with over 20 local nonprofit institutions. And this is our annual commitment, and we look forward to work with all of these partners to reinforce our commitment in contributing to our community as best as we can. The reason we want to, our background has always been in restaurants and commercial properties, but we want to diversify our portfolio, and we want to develop and tap into this real estate opportunity, which our Medicine Hat city has been facing a challenging situation of providing affordable housing. We see this as a very fit opportunity as we have been successful in our past businesses. We are very suitable with our finances and take on this project. This will be our first housing project, but we are determined this will not be our last housing project. I just want to move on to the next slide where it shows the kind of building that we want to build. We really want to come out with a little bit modern structure, not just build a regular old tradition, traditional duplexes. We really want to showcase our designing with our architecture. And we are really looking to provide a modern building at an affordable price. This is just one of the basic pictures, but this is not exactly, but maybe this is 90-95% of how style would, the kind of styling we want to do with our project and with this duplexes. I know one of the concern the council members may have is what if the medium rezoning is approved and then we go ahead and build something else. So we are willing to commit and we are willing to sign or do any memorandum of understanding to ensure that there is a confidence within the city council members that we will be building what we are presenting. So that is something that I really wanted to put it into the meeting. Also, I do not, this is again, I want to keep it short, everyone's valuable time. So I do not want to waste the time. This slide has already been shared by Sandra and she has already given the outline of what we are planning to do. So I really do not want to discuss that unless anyone has any particular questions. And this is just the one last slide where it just gives a little bit of detail as to why provide a modern design. We really think it will improve overall community look, overall neighborhood look, and it will definitely be a likable building. And we are committed to work on it. And with that, I will stop sharing, friends.
Thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind staying on the line, we may have some council questions. So we're going to now take councilor questions for either you or our Planning and Development Services folks. Councilor McGrogan.
Thank you, and through the chair, this is for planning more so. I've heard this presentation in MPC and thank you for it. My question is simply this. In the presentation that you gave, you mentioned that there's no development permit yet. So different things can be developed, and it says that an apartment building, if the lots were consolidated, up to 35 units could be built, but it's a discretionary use. Have I got that right, or could you explain, I guess, if this development doesn't go through, can someone come up and put a 35-suite apartment building in that site if this is approved tonight? That's my question.
Through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, an apartment is a discretionary use. A 35-unit apartment of that scale does not fit in with the neighborhood, but an apartment is a built form, so it could range anywhere from 3 units, but irrespective of that, an apartment is a discretionary use and will be appealable.
And just to follow up, again, just so the community that's listening has us straight, by discretionary, does that mean it has to come back to council? Or once this is approved tonight, it just basically stays with development and planning to determine if the discretionary use is suitable for the area?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrogan, a discretionary use just means that any decision made with that kind of built form will be appealable. Based on the development proposal that we do receive, we can choose to take it to MPC, looking at public interest, if that is something that we would consider at that time, but it just means that it is appealable.
Thanks for that clarity, appreciate it.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I had a question for planning and development from the slideshow where you show the photo. There's a map too that shows that there is a medium density development just to the north of this property. I tried looking, I didn't have a chance to drive by it, but I did try looking on here to see, and I'm just wondering if someone would know how many stories that multifamily dwelling directly across the street from it is.
Through the chair to Councillor Van Dyke, that was approved in 2006. It was approved as a fourplex. I'm not exactly sure about how many stories exactly, but that's 10.2 meters high.
Okay.
So that would be what is allowable for this as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Knodel.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the chair. So this is likely for planning and development. I'm curious about, this was a resident probed question. The resident was curious about that single lot that is being excluded from the I guess, block. I wouldn't say this is a block, but it's a segment of land here. I'm just curious about why that last property wasn't included in this rezoning.
Manager Sissons?
Yeah, so through the chair, if you looked at the, so that you're correct, it is not included as part of this rezoning. Just based on the intentions of the developer, they did not need to include this based on the site plan that they were showing, because it doesn't look like it's going to be exceeding potentially the 2-unit threshold that we have for low density.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Patel.
Really sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to mention the purpose was that we wanted to, if it's a duplex, we wanted to ensure that it is a walkout, so it is more suitable for the buyer. Whereas this last lot did not allow for a walkout, and therefore we are going to develop that, but it will be a single unit only.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hirsch.
Thanks. I guess this might go to staff. So I noticed this is within the Samus development. So how long have these lots been available for sale?
Managing Director Pancoast.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Hirsch. We had actually had a sale on these lots previously that fell through. And the city is actually the owner of the lots currently. They are under a conditional real estate purchase contract with the developer, and successful approval of rezoning would be one of the conditions to satisfy the pending sale. But this is our second attempt at selling these lots.
So I appreciate that, but then the lots were developed in what year then?
So through the chair, this area, so Samus Heights Phase 7 was generally developed around 2015.
So then, and I kind of remember the history, kind of bounced around a little bit as far as ownership goes, correct? So, okay, thank you. And then, so in my days at MPC, I do recall that this is not a development permit, this is listed land use change, but we have the applicant here kind of doing a demonstration of what it would look like, and it looks like, just to confirm, that this might be a duplex development. So thanks for that, but I guess that leads to my question, if so, that this does get to a development stage in terms of the duplexes, what is the allocation and requirements for parking? And then the size of it, and I get that this is just a this is a land use, but it's important for me or maybe the public to understand. So I'd like to understand the parking requirements for duplex, and then also, what are the limitations of size of the structure within the lot? And to make sure that that's not gonna be above exception on sizing within these lots?
You are directing that to planning?
Certainly.
Okay.
I just need to understand that if the application, I guess what I'm looking for, and maybe it might come at the development permit, so I don't expect, the fact that the applicant made, in terms of this bit of a disclosure on what this potentially would look like, I just need to understand, with the idea of the presentation made that we're looking at growing in some aspects within the development, but not too big, obviously, to make sure it matches the neighborhood. I just need to understand that the scale of development is commensurate within the area of the lot, and really, does it flow within the neighborhood is my thoughts. So maybe you can provide some feedback.
So through the chair, just to kind of first answer your question about the parking, there is no minimum specified, but generally it basically defaults to what the development authority thinks is appropriate, depending on the design. And so typically for something like this, we would look generally at about 1 stall per unit. As Sandra mentioned, the whole front of these properties are front access restricted, which means that on-street parking is viable, as opposed to typical neighborhoods where there's front driveways, there's not a lot of on-street parking available. So the combination of that on-street parking plus generally requiring about 1 per unit would satisfy our needs likely.
And then coupled with, again, the applicant making a bit of a demonstration that there will be garages, which would mean on-site parking. And again, I know I'm going down a bad road in the fact that we're talking about what future may look like. I just need to understand, again, to the applicant, and maybe this is the question, is the plan to make sure you utilize as much on-site parking as you can? Mr. Patel?
Go ahead, Mr. Patel.
Yes, sir, that is absolutely correct. We are intending to 100% have a parking and a garage. Most likely, from what we understand, that it may be at the back side of the house, not particularly in the front. But yes, there will be parking for each unit.
Thank you.
All right, so I don't see any more questions from council at this point. So I'm going to first ask if there's anyone in the gallery who would like to come speak for or against this bylaw. Please come down to the podium, state your first, and is there a piece of paper on the? Okay, so just sign in. And while you're doing that, I am going to get the city clerk to provide the notice. Notification report, I apologize.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Bylaw 4841 received first reading on December 16th, 2024. Public notice of the subject bylaw was published in the Medicine Hat News on Saturday, January 4th, 2025, and Saturday, January 11th, 2025. A notification letter related to the proposed bylaw 4841 was mailed to 54 adjacent, abutting, and vicinity properties on December 18th, 2024. 3 written submissions were received from Jonas Lau, Jacqueline Dole, and Gary and Bev Bardell, and are included here within the package.
Thank you very much. Sir, if you also just wouldn't mind stating your name and whether you're for or will be speaking for or against the bylaw.
Good evening, Council. My name is Logan Schaefer. I live in Samus Heights, and I cannot support the rezoning of these sites 2, 6, 10, 14, and 18 of Sierra Green Southwest, or any other sites in this development for rezoning. From a low density to a medium density. Currently, with the only limited number of lots in the neighborhood, we're already seeing bottlenecks developing as a traffic pattern. The current sites do not have adequate parking to support rezoning. Currently, the sites only consist of on-street parking and what is added in the back alley. As noted earlier in the ASP, there is a medium-density site fourplex. Those vehicles are already clogging up the street in front of our houses. I can only see this getting worse. The majority of this phase of the development is functionally only uses one entrance in and out of the area. These other entrances and routes do exist, but taking into account human factors, humans will always take the path of least resistance. Their first choke point is a section between Samus Rotary Way Southwest and Sierra Green Southwest, right where this rezoning is being proposed. When the vehicles are legally parked on either side of the street, it is functionally a one-lane road in and out of that area. Though mathematically there may be room for 2 vehicles to pass, it's too tight for vehicles to safely pass each other, forcing one to wait while the other car has to clear the driving lane. This is not a guess or prediction. This is already occurring with the limited development that has happened in the subdivision. The next concern is the playground school zone that is around the corner. This is the primary route in and out of this area of the development. During student pickup and drop-off times, this road becomes very narrow with buses parked on one side of the road, parents parked on the other. As children do, they dart across the road, thus putting them at risk. With current traffic volumes, this is a manageable risk. The risk will continue to rise as the final phase of Samus Heights fills in. By rezoning from low density to medium density, we are adding undue risk to these children. To reiterate, I cannot support the rezoning of these sites or any other sites in the subdevelopment to a medium density residential district, as it'll add to what's currently a busy road and turn it into an unnecessarily congested area. With increased traffic comes increased risk of injury and possibly death, as the proposal will add the number of vehicles driving through the school zone where children are just trying to get home from school. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to provide our Planning and Development Service folks an opportunity to respond. So I think at the next stage, which would be a development permit stage, there will be consideration of traffic. If you could just explain how that process works. And I'm not sure, probably Managing Director Bohan would maybe speak to the school ground safety. I'm not sure that's your area, but go ahead, Manager Sissons.
So through the chair, when the area is planned out, there's numerous options for transportation routes in and out. So I'll just flag that this area does have, and to get to that site, there are, not including lanes, there are 3 access points to get to that site from other parts of the neighborhood. Samus Heights 7 was designed under our current municipal servicing standards, which is the same we use in all neighborhoods that account for parking lanes on either side of the roadway, as well as adequate space for travel in both directions. And just to further answer your point, when we get to the development permit stage, if there are, under the MSSM, so Municipal Servicing Standards Manual, if there are over 100 peak trips triggered by this development, then we would request a transportation impact assessment, which would then do a further analysis on if there are any improvements required for the transportation system.
Thank you very much. And just one more before you leave. Are you, can you confirm that once a development permit application is provided to the city, then the individuals who may have a concern, it will be published, and individuals who have a concern with that particular development outlined in the application will have an opportunity to express their concerns at that time.
So through the chair, all development permits that we receive are advertised as per the Municipal Government Act. Depending on the development built form that is proposed will depend on whether it's appealable or not. So under medium density residential, different forms, some are permitted uses where as long as they're in compliance with all regulations within the bylaw, there's no avenue for an appeal on that. If it is a discretionary use, then there is an opportunity to appeal, or if there's variances granted.
Thank you. Managing Director Bohan, do you have any, I mean, this is a very specific case. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the school zone that has been brought up, but even generally about improving the safety of children in school zones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just with regard to road safety and an application that's brought forward, it is routed through the normal, technical coordinating committee. At that point in time, we will work with the Planning and Development Department. So the Municipal Works Department will advise challenges to the built form when it comes to transportation safety. With regard to school zones, we'll also be taking that into consideration when the comments are made during the development permit application.
Thank you very much. One last time, if there's anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak for or against the development, please come forward, write your name down on the page, say your name, and if you are supporting or against the bylaw.
Councillors, Your Worship, Scott Payne, I'm speaking against the bylaw. We had another hearing a few meetings ago. One thing I forgot to bring up is that when you rezone these, you change the density, I think you have a massive effect on the actual value of the flanking properties, those who were there first. And I didn't hear anybody talk about reducing assessments for those people who now have, in the case of the last one, I think it's 18 to 25 new neighbors. If this is 35 suites, what are we looking at, 70, 80 new neighbors? If you look at the layout of the land right now, there's lots of lots that are open. So if you rezone that, how does that affect the development of those lots? Because people are looking for a certain density or a certain type of neighborhood. And now we've gone into this, planning phase. We've developed partially, and now we're going to change what that looks like. So I think we reduce the credibility of future developments when we make big changes like this. So if you're going to do it, I would say let's look at reducing the assessments for the taxes for those who are in those neighborhoods. And I highly recommend against it because you're changing a plan. People bought their houses. They spent a lot of money to be there for a certain type of neighborhood. And the city is potentially now changing that drastically. So another 70 or 100 people in that neighborhood. It does affect the quality of life for people. Thank you.
Thank you. I noticed that Councillor Robbins and Councillor Knodel have their names on the speakers list. Are you proposing to ask a question? Or Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, and through the chair, I think my question is actually for Mr. Patel, if he's still online. And, hi, Mr. Patel. I'm looking at I was looking at your presentation to figure out where the garages that you have in your plan were in comparison to where this street is. So if I'm looking at, I'm sure you can't see it, I apologize, but I'm looking at an overhead shot where the Francophone school's up and to the right, the church is up top, and there's sort of like the front of where I think the front of the property is straight, and then the back that's on the lane side is curved. And so the plan is to put the garages on the curved side, not obviously, that's the front of the houses you showed are going to be on that straight line in front of the sidewalk.
Yes, ma'am, thank you for the question. So absolutely, there is a back alley that will be passing through, and there are some traditional, I'm sure you may have come across, there is a back alley parking that has a small garage at the back. So that is where we intend to do for each of the units. And I also want to point it out to the gentleman that there won't be 70 or 100 new neighbors. There is, instead of 4 units or 5 units, 5 individuals, there will be 8. So instead of 5 single houses, there will be 8 duplexes. So total of 8 units. So there should not be that many neighbors. And if concerned with the safety of any of our children, or wherever, as a developer, it will be ethically, and as a citizen, it will be my responsibility to ensure that we find the solution for it. So we are not only looking at this as a money-making opportunity. We really want to come out with affordable housing and help out the vacuum that there is for the untap into the opportunity of providing that affordable housing. But there will be definitely a parking. Unfortunately, I cannot pinpoint because it is still in the development process, and we have not spent a lot of money in architecture unless we get this kind of approval that yes, this project is moving forward. But we will be working very closely with Sandra and the planning department to ensure that it is convenient to the new residents and to the existing residents around the around this lot.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Do you have a, nope. And Councillor Knodel, was yours a question as well? Councillor Knodel?
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the chair. So my question is for planning and development, and it's inspired by Mr. Payne's question. So I'm just curious, what is worse for property value? A lot that sits empty for, I mean, at this point, many of these lots have sat empty for over, well, about 10 years at this point, or multi-unit property?
I am not sure that that is within their area of expertise. You can try if you want, but I think that,
That's
yeah,
a
go ahead.
Steckenberg question.
So through the chair, I was just going to defer it to corporate services. We're not in the game of speculating on what the increase or decrease in assessment values would be.
Nice try, but I don't think Acting Manager Director Barta can answer it either.
Where's Sue?
Perhaps that would be a question for someone inland, but I'm not sure that there's anyone around the table at this very moment that would be able to answer that. I'm sure it depends on a lot of things. City Manager Mitchell.
Thank you through the chair. And yes, that's a very difficult question to capture, and it depends on philosophy and where we're at with our housing and our housing strategy. Do we want more units? How badly do we want those units? What's the cost of assessment versus the vacant land? I don't want to take a stab at it. I just think that it's one of the challenges that we all know we're in a housing crisis, and that's something that should be top of mind. But I think weighing out the flavor of the neighborhood too has to be taken into consideration. So I kind of skirted around it and didn't really answer it. Thank you.
Councillor Hirsch, question?
Yeah, no, just trying to understand the scale within SAMUS. So I take note within the pictures of the size of the roads, et cetera. So can you help me understand if the roads, the municipal roads that are installed in there, I feel like it is somewhat tight. So just looking at in the bottom of that picture, the 4 vehicles, like is that lane or the street within municipal guidelines in terms of what you would see within the rest of the city? I guess I'm wondering if the street's been shrunk essentially, which is certainly within the purview of whatever development, et cetera. I also think myself driving through Calgary, I recall going down a road where literally someone would have to go into park before, you know, the oncoming vehicle can get by. So I am understanding that lanes can get considerably smaller. I'm just trying to understand scale to the rest of developments within the community, and maybe you can help me understand that.
Councillor Hirsch, for clarity, are you referring to the lane or the road?
The road,
road, okay.
not the back alley per se. I'm talking about the L that would exist around the perimeter of the subject property.
Manager Sissons?
Yes, so through the chair, I can provide context on all three environments. So typically under our municipal servicing standards, a lane width for low density residential is going to be 6 meters, whereas a lane width for an area that has multifamily is going to be 9 meters. To give you context of a local roadway, it's 10 meters in paved surface, so 2 meters for each parking lane generally, and 3 meters for the travelway. To give you, like, how wide is a vehicle? Well, a standard pickup truck is about 2 meters. So even with 2 vehicles parked on either side, you would have 6 meters of travelway. The reason why it does feel tighter in Calgary is because their paved width is typically 9 meters in newer neighborhoods. So that's also newer neighborhoods. Different areas of Medicine Hat will have different widths on the roadway.
Right.
Some of the older areas are, up to 12 meters in pavement width. Mm-hmm. The roadways, if you look further north, so the minor collector in front of the school, it's going to be wider. It's going to be 3.5 meters. The same with the major collector that runs Sierra Boulevard. It's going to be a much wider roadway. And that's to accommodate other larger vehicles such as a city bus and that type of thing, and the higher traffic volume and higher speeds of typical traffic.
Mm-hmm. So within that phase, which is Samus, what about the road sizing on the north side of Strachan? So let's call it more of an existing neighborhood. Would those be the same sizing as the one in Samus here, South 7?
So like north of Sierra Boulevard?
Yeah, sorry, Sierra Boulevard. I apologize, yes.
Likely, so that area was built out starting in early 2000s, but our standards have not changed drastically at all. If anything, it's things like the sidewalk width has widened from 1.2 meters to 1.5 meters, for example. But our general road cross-section, hasn't changed much over the last couple decades.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I don't see any further speakers, so I'm going to declare the public hearing closed with thanks to our presenters. And if I could get a motion.
Yeah, I'll give that motion, Madam Chair. So I move that council gives second reading to bylaw 4841.
I second that.
Okay. I can't see the speakers list. Pardon? Oh, there we go. Councillor Dumanowski.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'd like to just make some comments. I initially had a question around that extra parcel of land, but my question was answered by both, I think it was Councillor Knoll asked that question, and Mr. Patel answering it with his responsive single development on that parcel, because in the image I had seen that whole parcel of land being developed. So my kind of comments would be around, obviously when we seek to make a zoning change within a defined area structure plan, it raises questions, and appropriately so. Certainly, we have addressed similar questions with zoning changes in other parts of the city. We regularly field similar type of development change or proposals through area structured plan changes and zoning changes in River Flats, Riverside, Southeast Hill. We've had many of them in our term, quite frankly, with very similar questions, similar concerns. But but with the confidence of our planning department, we seek to find, obviously a development proposal that is going to be congruent or fit the use of that area, the traffic patterns, et cetera. And so the road sizing and parking off-street, on-street is an appropriate question. Like we have asked in those particular situations, I think those questions have been addressed more than satisfactory for me. Although this is a zoning change, and we've over time, and certainly in this term, had more and more what is to be in the permit stage part of the zoning application. And historically, those were untethered in entirety. But I think in some ways it's an advantage because it does help in a very public way create confidence around what is to come there. Because if it were strictly a zoning change and we looked at the permitted uses, without any sense of what the developer wishes to do there, we might not have the same confidence to move ahead. So I look at the resume, if you will, of achievements by Mr. Patel and his family in our community, their commitment to not only developing in our community, but residing here, short-term and long-term, as a testament to the confidence that they are likewise now venturing into a development branch of their development and revenue conglomerate, if you will. They are going to take the same principles that they have done in their business and the same acumen and applied here. I'm excited, quite frankly, and I rarely say that when it comes to development, but I'm excited by the opportunity to see a responsible, a proven entity within our community, a business faction who is now wanting to branch out into this kind of thing, and this being the inaugural event of this kind of development for them. I take, although I can only take it at his word, but I see and hear the confidence of him and the kind of proposal he wants to do. Being very unique, one of the things I have heard, small criticisms from the community over time, is that these multifamily or duplex developments that have been done in our community are box cookie cutter type developments. When you look at other centers, Calgary is probably a great example of a very unique duplex and multifamily developments that fit architecturally, aesthetically into a mature neighborhood, albeit this is not that old of a neighborhood. They are able to come in and fit in a very meaningful way. As has been indicated, this is 5 units being moved to 8. I'm excited, and I'm going to leave it at that. And I think this is a great proposal, and I'm wholeheartedly endorsing it. Thank you.
Councillor Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you to the chair. So just a couple of comments. This is, to me, not a significant land use change from low to medium density, considering there's a medium density development already in existence across the street. I think it suits and matches the neighborhood and would be a welcome addition in a community that is in desperate need of this missing middle housing. So I do know that sometimes when changes come forward, especially councillors in the past have expressed concerns about changes to changes not aligning with ASPs, but a lot of them are quite old. I'm assuming this one is the age of the development, so 10 years. And I think that a lot of things can change in a city in that time, one of them being growth and housing needs changing from what they may have been in the original development. I'm happy to see that there would be lots that were empty being developed and providing housing in our community to people. And while I do understand neighborhood concerns around parking, I don't feel that the need for parking should trump the need for housing in our community when people are unhoused or inappropriately housed or lack access to affordable housing. And the more housing we have, the more accessible it becomes for people. So I'm very happy to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Sharps.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So I also had a few comments. I do find the only thing that's really concerning to me is the definition of medium density. I find that that's an internal thing. I find that definition is quite large, so it leaves the community a bit, well, it can go anywhere from a duplex to 4 levels. And I think that's where the community wants a little bit more comfort. I think that's what I'm hearing anyways. So I think the only thing that's giving me comfort is that Mr. Patel said that's not his intention. And it's not like one of our other areas where we went to put 4 stories up. So now I will say that I live around the corner from you. And so this has been my personal dog walking area for a decade. So I hate giving it up, but it's beautiful. But when I read the package, it is my personal dog walking area. When I read the package, one of the things I did was walk over there because I was a little concerned about the width of the streets when that comment had been made. And I think it's the same as everywhere else in that neighborhood area. So I felt like it was anyways. And I felt like the lanes, I went mucking through the back lane there, and I felt like the lanes were quite wide. I will say that duplexes from when I was growing up are not the duplexes of today. I think they are gorgeous and beautiful, and I think that whole Samus area is so pretty, and I think that there's duplexes down the street from me, and I'm only around the corner from you, and they're beautiful. Like I would never have thought, I think I was, in my own mind, I was like, there's gonna be 100 people here and it's gonna drive me crazy. And that never happened. And I just think that based on what Mr. Patel is presenting to us, I think it will fit in the neighborhood. I, however, do like Mr. Payne's suggestion of looking at the assessment area. But I always think that we should always err on the side of our community and do the right thing. Is if we do something that brings in a deficit to somebody's house, I would hope that we would look at that realistically and see what that looks like. So I am going to support this. I am excited about it. I take all the concerns that I read very seriously, but I think Mr. Patel does too, and wants to build within this community. He's been here forever. He's not a developer that lives outside of the city. He lives here, he's with us. So I don't think he's gonna do anything to risk that. And I do believe that. Only and primarily because he's pretty excited about this development and putting in some affordable housing that's beautiful for our community. So I really like that. Thank you.
Councillor Robbins.
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, I want to thank Ms. Moses for your presentation. You answered all the questions I might have had, so that's always something, because I always have a question, but you did answer all of them really thoroughly. So I did take note of what you said, that the area structured plan allowed for more housing density than the land use bylaw, and that's very important to me in determining the decision that I'm about to make, because when the land use bylaw is not at odds with the area structure plan, it's really difficult for council to wrestle with what was the intention of that area when it was being built out. And so I do take a lot of, I had it pulled up the area structure plan so I could look at it in the depth of consideration of what should be in the neighborhood. It was really quite thorough, whereas the land use bylaw sort of paints a picture across the whole city that doesn't have the specificity of the area structure plan. So the fact that the area, although the land use bylaw is the bigger law in our municipal world, the area structure plan really gets into the details of the neighborhood, and the fact that it would have allowed for more density in this area really is impactful on me. I would also say to the gentleman, sorry, I've forgotten your name already, I apologize, who presented, my children went to this school for several years, so I've been in your neighborhood a lot. I found that mostly what I would do is I would come off the road, go into the church parking lot, thankfully it exists there, scooch around the back, and then walk across the street, get my kids. They were quite small at the time, and there was no way they were gonna cross the road safely, and then walk back over. So I never had to, in my turnaround, sort of come into the neighborhood. I would sometimes, if I was a little early, take a walk through there, and it's going to be a fabulous place. it is already, and I'm sure your neighbors feel that. I feel the fear that you have that you're going to be across the street from an apartment. And so I was very glad to hear from Mr. Patel today that that is not his intention, but the risk is by making this choice, Mr. Patel says, for whatever reason, we're not going to do this development, we're going to do something else. I mean, wonderful idea that they have, that some other developer could come in and say, now I want an apartment in there, and that is certainly a risk. But again, I'm going to go back to the area structure plan as saying that this is something that could work when the whole area was planned specifically. So I am going to support the bylaw. I do recognize the concerns. I think the concerns are met by the presentation that I received today. And I do take Councillor Dumanowski, who passionately spoke about the flats one time, as I recall, as a flats dweller myself, that we shouldn't change land use, and we tend to focus on, like, in the flats, it happens to us a lot, the land use gets changed, and that's why I say this, that area structure plan that really gives me some certainty that that's the right thing to do. And of course, Mr. Patel's presentation was also very helpful, so I do support the bylaw, and I thank you all very much, and particularly the two gentlemen that came to talk about your concerns, and the people who wrote their concerns. I read those carefully. I didn't drive over there or walk over there, because I've been there a lot, but I was aware that sort of on the other side of the school, there's some similar developments, and I, just with the traffic that I've seen at the beginning and end of school day, I felt a little bit reassured about adding a few people to the neighborhood. Adding an apartment would be a concern of mine, but I'm hearing what's planned here is not that, and that does make me feel better. So, thank you.
Councillor McGrogan.
Thank you. I guess I just wanted to voice my support for this. I'm not as excited as a couple other council members are here about it, and only because you always wonder about the sincere, Mr. Patel is very sincere in his wish to develop, but that, you know, things could change and it could be somebody else. But what I did hear is that a 35-unit apartment building is probably never going to happen there, which would be disastrous in my view for that neighborhood. But I think a little bit of intensification is probably not a bad thing. And again, my enthusiasm is curbed by the fact that we do have existing neighbors that have purchased and developed in that area with a single-family dwelling in mind and thinking that was going to be their neighborhood. So that curbs my excitement, I guess is the word that was used, but I do support this and think that overall, I think Mr. Patel, I've heard him twice now give his presentation. He's genuine and sincere about his development proposal, and I'm going to support it.
Councillor Hirsch.
So I appreciate all the submissions from everyone, and including the people that wrote in. Interestingly enough, we're here sitting at a land use bylaw change and not a development permit stage. And that's kind of what I want to stress and maybe underline, is the fact that we do recognize we are in a housing shortage within the city of Medicine Hat, whether we like it or not. The market is just absolutely is tight. If you even look at the real estate listings, I think there was only 100, at the time when I actually sold my house, there was only about 100 listings, which quite literally is about 33% of what used to be. I remember there was 300 or 400 listings. So it is tight. I think it's important for us to look at options. That said, it's not usual for us to get a bit of a rendering at the land use change in terms of what's going to be proposed. And I want to underline the fact that this could, in fact, change altogether. But with what's proposed as a little bit of a insight, which I appreciate because it actually probably made my decision, it reversed my decision in regards to this, and I will support it in the fact that I think planning has heard around this table, anything greater than what's being proposed would probably get shot down if this was to come back. And I know this may not come back to us, but I think it's important for us to understand that could happen. But I think, you know, certainly what I've heard tonight gives me some comfort that we will accept as what's proposed. And with the caveat that anything greater on the intensity of the development, I think should give us some pause, and hopefully, you know, I know the chair of MPC sitting there and the vice chair as well, and listening in. So, so with that, you've got my support. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further comments, we'll vote on the motion to give second reading to bylaw 4841. That's unanimous. Councillor McGrogan.
Madam Chair, I move that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 4841 to amend the land use bylaw.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on third reading of bylaw 4841. That is unanimous. So we will move on to our next item of business, which is a motion put forward through a notice of motion at our last meeting by Councillor Sharps. It's sanction review. The document is in the package. I'm not sure if you might want to make some amendments to it. This is clearly about me, and I just wanted to clarify the pecuniary interest provisions of the Municipal Government Act deal with monetary benefits, so receiving that there would be some monetary, personal, or familial interest. There's a number of different machinations of that within the MGA, but it is monetary. So that is why and this is just I believe, a motion to have a discussion at a future time about the sanctions. So Sanction 4 has impacted me negatively in a number of ways, and particularly since it was sent back in August. I do not believe I have a monetary interest in this matter. Councillor Sharps, would you like to, we'll get the motion up on the screen, and then Councillor Sharps, you can make your motion, and then look for a seconder. I believe Rondi's working on it. Thank you.
I'll read the preamble as well if you'd like, just so everybody can hear it and see it. So in the ruling of August 26, 2024, Justice Nation struck down the sanctions imposed by the council, specifically 2, 3, and 6, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Well, I think that should be 5 and 6. While Sanction 1 was upheld, Section 4 was referred back to council for reconsideration. As it's now been 5 months without this issue appearing on the agenda, I will be putting forth a motion for the council to prioritize this matter by placing it on the closed agenda for immediate deliberation, meaning the next council meeting. We frequently, and I just wanted to explain why I was doing this. So we frequently request that administration perform various functions. Okay, I do a lot, I'll tell you that. And reconsider decisions. And when these actions are delayed, our community becomes frustrated at our inaction. I know that there was no ill intention, but it's just gotten away from us. I believe that, so I'm just gonna read this here, but while we may not all agree with the code of conduct or Justice Nation's decision, so either way, it is our responsibility to address this matter. I hope to receive a second for this motion, and I trust the council will recognize the urgency of bringing this issue back for discussion. And before I read thank you. Before I read the motion, I just want to make clear that I think it's important that we do our jobs every step of the way, whether it's uncomfortable for us, whether it's comfortable for us. And so on that particular day, I'm not going to rehash this entire thing, but I stepped up and said something because I believe that to be right. I also believe this to be right. It was August when this came back. I am not, for those that don't know me, the most patient human being. So I know that everybody has been busy, but this has been weighing on me. We've been given direction, let's just get it done. Whatever that looks like, let's get our work done. So, you know, when I'm in the community and I'm talking to people and people say to me, why can't the city do this done? I'm like, I'll go talk, I'll go find out, and I'll do it, and I'll chase it up. But the same responsibility has to come back on council. So that is why I'm doing that. So I move that, and I actually sent this all in. Rhonda, you do not have it? Okay, so I'll just, I move that Section 4 of the sanction is referred back to closed council. I don't know what the date is. February 3rd. Thank you, City Manager. For deliberation.
If you need a seconder, I'll second it.
I think I still need a seconder. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So from my point of view, as soon as the decision was rendered, Section 4 of the sanctions was suspended, and it was up to council to rework the sanctions. So any continuation of Section 4 between the August decision and now has been inappropriate. For example, being locked out of areas of City Hall, including areas that administration has scheduled meetings in that I have been invited to. So, I mean, from my perspective, it would be ideal just to make it clear that to administration and whoever else that what is currently being implemented is not acceptable anymore. So any other discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. All right, that passes. Next up is first reading of bylaw 4846 to repeal IDP bylaw 4605. Is that okay? This is for first reading only, and we're going to have a public hearing on this matter in February, I believe. So
right.
Just a brief introduction would be fine, I think.
Do you want me to throw the motion on or no?
Sure.
Okay, so I move that council give first reading to bylaw 4846.
And I'll second that.
Go ahead if you have it. Things that you wanted us to know before voting, but generally speaking, we don't vote on it, and a public hearing is coming. So you go ahead.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. As you have mentioned, this bylaw 4846 is here before you for the IDP to provide first reading to enable a circulation. And as you had mentioned, we have scheduled a public hearing, a joint public hearing with 3 jurisdictions on February 12th. At which time we will have a comprehensive presentation by the 3 administrations to 3 councils. So I'll leave that with you at this time.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll vote on first reading. That passes. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to notices of motion.
Mayor Clark?
So there.
Can we do committee business?
Absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Number 11, committee business. I was thinking maybe I could bring up.
There isn't any committee business, but
yes,
if you want to make a notice of motion,
okay,
you can do so
right now.
After
okay, got it.
Councillor McGrogan makes his. So this is just a notice. We don't even really have to read it.
Good.
But since yours is just not in the package,
understood,
you will have to read it.
Okay.
So Councillor McGrogan, I understand from talking to you previously that you do not intend to make the motion tonight and ask for a 2/3 majority?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Your Worship. My intention was to bring this forward. This was brought up in October. We had a lot of budget issues and other things to deal with. The city manager did present a briefing note with 6 recommendations, and I think awaiting some form of, I guess, word on this. So I guess my motion will come at the next meeting, if that's basically, and do I read it now or just?
You can, but generally if it's in the package, you don't have to.
Okay, then I won't bother. I think what's important is that this come back to the forefront, that it be discussed, that council looks at the 6 recommendations. Don't have to agree or disagree, but come, I guess, armed to discuss what of this report is acceptable and what isn't. I have a few questions as well, and I look forward to discussing them with our city manager and council.
Okay. Councillor Sharps, do you want to read out loud your notice of motion?
Sure. Should I give some background or no?
Sure. It will go in the package next meeting if you want to provide it then.
Okay, I'll give a really quick synopsis just because I think some other members of council might want to weigh in on this. So this is kind of a group notice of motion, I'm just going to say. So earlier this week, it was actually triggered by an email by Councillor Hirsch, who got inundated with some downtown business owners, and then we all kind of were chiming in and we all kind of had the same thing. So this was really, I appreciate Councillor Hirsch elevating it to the forefront. As chair of DNI, I'm the one that's going to bring the motion forward, but really it was a group of 5 of us that said, hey, we need to talk about this. So basically, when we approved the business licenses and the change of fees, it looks like there has been some inadvertent fallout within the community, and they would like us to review it. So they would like to review it urgently. So there's a couple of things that we can do. And so there was some thoughts going back and forth, and I'd like council to weigh in on this. There was a thought to refer it back to administration with direction to investigate and report back to council through DNI. But as the chair of DNI, I would be happy to forfeit that and have it come back right to council so we can expedite this matter. Refer it back to administration with direction to prepare, and this is, Mayor Clark, I appreciate you sending this out. Refer it back to administration with direction to prepare a specified amendment and return to through council with amending bylaw on a certain date. And maybe with additional information on the differences between the old rates and the new rates. Councillor Hirsch, do you feel like I captured some of your concerns?
Can I just mention, so this is just a notice of motion, so we won't be having a discussion. Could you potentially pick one of those?
Can't have all 3?
Well, some of them are probably contrary to each other. So just in terms of getting the notice of motion, and then at the next meeting, we can debate it and make amendments as needed.
Okay, so I move that we refer back to administration the business, I can't remember what that's called, but which bylaw that was. Do you know what? Thank you.
You can just say business licensing fees.
Thank you, I appreciate that. 2339, bylaw 2339. Specifically highlighting any changes and charges that result in increase greater than inflation. And highlight any changes to the PNDS bylaws and policy. I think that was it. And for it to be brought back right to council. I am happy to forfeit that through DNI if DNI is in line. Yeah, we're all in agreement. Councilor McGrogan, you're good with that? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Robbie.
Changes resulted in increases
greater than inflation.
Greater than inflation. So this is the motion that will appear as new business at our next council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Sharps, and you'll be getting a seconder then.
Okay.
We don't have any further business unopened. However, council does intend to go back into closed, so can I have a motion to go into closed?
I'll move that.
Seconder, Councillor Hyder, and we'll vote. Thank you, and we will take a 10-minute recess. Thank you very much.